Good afternoon, everybody. On this April 1st, 2025, I have all your stories for your rush hour ride home. We will be discussing the big day that we have ahead for Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I know it's been a few weeks where we haven't had much content coming out, but we're going to have a response to a motion to dismiss dropping today. It has not dropped yet, but what we will be sharing is Blake Lively being called out for an improvised crotch grab scene. Of course, this is important. It's from a different movie, but it just goes to show the hypocrisy that exists as she's claiming she was harassed on set from something Justin Baldoni did, whereas what she did would have been far more egregious. I'll share that with you. Plus, Machine Gun Kelly calls out the rumors that his new child is named Celestial Seed. Says that is fake news. So here we are on 4th of July. You never want to, if you're a celebrity, you never want to announce the name of your child on, did I say 4th of July? April Fool's Day. I'm coming from the future. I had a Celsius and I'm several months ahead. Either way, I'll get to that story. Plus, Bill Murray gets emotional on Andy Cohen's Watch What Happens Live as he describes a nice story of his meeting Bruce Willis, and a Luigi Mangione breaking news update as they are seeking the death penalty. I'll have that. Plus, Joe Rogan actually is saying what the government is doing is reckless, as he says they need to slow down, knock it off, if you will, with regard to just sending random people to foreign prisons. Also, the government does announce that they did make a mistake, and yet they cannot return the prisoner. Whoopsie. Also, Cory Booker is speaking on the House floor for 11 hours? I'll share why and what he has to say. All these stories and more, it's happening right now on The Rush. Well, you really just don't know on April Fool's Day what's a real story and what's not. Machine Gun Kelly says, my baby's name is not Celestial Seed. Now, by the way, Celeste is a great name. It means of the stars or whatever the heck it means, but Celestial Seed, that's a little too on the nose. I don't need to know what kind of seed Machine Gun Kelly has, but he's shooting BB guns, I guess, at Megan Fox. They had another kid, even though they're no longer together. He can't stop talking about his newborn, but he says he's not revealing very much, just correcting fans with bad information. Wait, guys, her name isn't Celestial Seed. Her mom is going to tell you the name when we are ready. Maybe they are back together. Are they back together? I don't think they're back together. Who can tell anymore, right? Who can tell? So either way, happy for them. I'm sure it'll be a beautiful baby. All right, Bill Murray gets emotional during a interview on Watch What Happens Live. Says Bruce Willis is a good effing guy. Describes where they met. Bruce Willis was a page, which is essentially an intern for NBC. Have a listen to this.
Moonrise Kingdom was a really beautiful, lovely film, and I got to work with and have a wonderful time with Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
We should remember today, he just had a birthday.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis is a good guy, a good guy.
Yeah.
And he was a good friend and really always understood. Bruce Willis was a page at NBC.
Wow.
When I was on Saturday Night Live.
No way.
Yeah, he was a page.
Wow.
And his job was to come and to refill, this sounds like insane but his job was to come and go to the dressing rooms and refill the M&Ms and pretzels kind of thing in the actors' rooms. And I remember when I met him after he was already a successful guy, he said, you and Gilda were nice to me. And I thought, okay. And that's, you know.
There it is. So as long as you're nice to Bill Murray, he likes you. I guess that's how it works. Bill Murray is interesting, right? Because I've heard nothing but amazing stories about him and horrible stories about him. You either love him or you hate him. But caught in a rare, genuine moment right there. He's a living legend regardless of what you think about him. Well, some people think this is a living legend. Some don't. But we've got Luigi Mangione. He is shocking news today as U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi is seeking the death penalty. This is very interesting. Of course, he's being accused of gunning down the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, in cold blood. Let's go to what the news is saying about this upgrade of charges for the death penalty.
Breaking news this morning, the Justice Department has just said Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed prosecutors to seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione. He's the man charged with killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a New York City street back in December.
One of the crimes Mangione is charged with is murder with a firearm, which is a capital offense under federal law. So the death penalty is a possibility. But in federal death penalty cases, it is a two-stage process. The jury not only decides guilt, but then they are the ones who ultimately decide whether the defendant lives or is put to death. It is not the judge that hands out the sentence. That's why death penalty juries have to be qualified, and it's a much more onerous process to seat a capital jury.
All right, so we'll have to see what this means. Now, a jury would have to convict him. Will a jury turn a blind eye? I mean, you're going to have to find a jury of people that have not had to deal with insane medical debt, insane issues. Again, it's not to say, assuming it's true that he was the person who killed Brian Thompson, assuming that's true, it's not that the crime is not illegal, right? I haven't defended the crime. That's why he's in prison right now. It's the issue about the severity of the healthcare epidemic, right? That's the issue. So sadly, we're not talking about putting together a healthcare plan, a universal healthcare plan. Trump, when he ran for office, said they've got concepts of a plan. You might remember in his first term, what was that, like a decade ago in his first term, he said, we got it right around the corner. We're going to have the best thing. You're going to absolutely love this plan. It's tremendous. He's got the whole thing, right? And then there's nothing. So all of us are being robbed by insurance companies. We're being forced to stay at jobs we might not normally want, or even not able to retire. Some of us have our healthcare rolled back. We have things that we were approved for that now we're not. I mean, the idea that you could get cancer and go bankrupt, or even, break a knee on a pothole and go bankrupt is asinine. And I know people with $1 million in medical debt that can't even get a cell phone because they have zero credit, right? Their credit is done. And anyway, we know these issues exist. And I think if I had to put my mind into the head of Luigi Mangione, I'd say he understood the system was so messed up and wanted to make a statement so loud that it was undeniable. I don't know. He could just be a crazy person. But the fact that the left and the right, the populace has come together. And by that I mean, whether you watch Ben Shapiro or some left-leaning content, people have come together and said, the system is wrong. The system is rigged. The system is unfair. Everyone has come together and said, we need to overhaul this. And Congress has not voted on a bill that currently exists out there. All they have to do is show up and vote on this bill. And if they vote no, then you could maybe vote with your dollar and vote them out of office. But instead, they've just jerked us around to the point where people feel so helpless, they're taking matters into their own hands. A society that is taken care of doesn't do that. A society who feels ripped off does. So we'll have to see how that all goes. All right, coming up next, we're going to discuss Blake Lively. Have you heard about her? She's in the news. Leanne Newton posted this. Today is the due date for the response to Ryan Reynolds. Of course, Ryan Reynolds had a motion to dismiss. Will this be the response from the judge that we're all waiting for? Will this be the response from Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's side? I think right now we're going to get Brian Friedman's response, and then the judge will rule after that. I could be wrong. This will come later today, so by the chance this podcast comes out, we might have that. I will be going live when we have that paperwork, and we will just cover it. We will be ready to go covering it, so make sure you're on YouTube, subscribe with your alerts, because I think it's going to be an interesting Tuesday on April Fool's Day nonetheless, so we'll get into all of that. All right, coming up next, I'm going to share the crotch grab story heard around the world. It's a package you're going to want to stick around for. So this story broke over the weekend, and I just haven't really dove into it just yet, but Lady C just tweeted this. It has been brought to my attention that Blake Lively grabbed British actor Henry Golding by his manhood while filming A Simple Favor. She declared that she did so because she felt the character she was playing would have done so, not because she wanted to do so. Yes, and pigs fly. Interesting that this pain of victimhood at the hands of masculinity could have given herself license to behave in a way that was actually far more invasive and harassing than anything she has accused Justin Baldoni of. Her actions were an actual case of physical assault, yet she claims as if she's a victim of sexual harassment because Baldoni's lips grazed her neck while filming a scene. It would be interesting to learn why Blake Lively, who has had 4 children and a multitude of men, thinks that her neck is a sex organ but a man's penis and testicles aren't. What has Ryan Reynolds been using to impregnate her? Now, The truth is, like, it's kind of like whataboutism. Like, Blake Lively could have done this in a different movie and still claim harassment, but it's still not going to look good, right? If Brian Friedman wants to cross-examine her, he absolutely can use this as evidence. I'd love to hear Brian Friedman cross-examine her in a court of law as to why she thinks it's okay for a woman to grab the private parts of a man under the guise of acting, but it's not okay for a man to pass his lips over her neck while he is definitely acting. These are the examples of what will come out in a deposition. Brian Friedman showing showing these moments, and just to show the nuance that exists in film, because there is nuance, right? Especially if you're Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively in a scene where you're building tension and he grazes his lips on her neck. This isn't working at Enterprise and your boss does that, right? They're in this scene. So here's Elrich, one of our favorite content creators, kind of breaking it all down on her Instagram with regard to Blake Lively with the crotch grab and how this may cancel out whatever allegations she has against Justin Baldoni. Have a listen.
She improvised grabbing Henry Golden by the balls because she felt like that's what this character would do. Shout out to Bosie Go Hawks for bringing the script to my attention. Henry Golden's character comes home, opens the door. Blake Lively was only supposed to hand him a martini and talk about how she wants mommy and daddy time. Grabbing him by the walls was authorship.
One of my favorite additions that you came up with. I think is nuts. And you really went for it, too.
That's always awkward. And you're like, hey, hi, nice to meet you. Can I grab your nuts? Like, really hard?
But really hard.
So there's the director, Paul Feig, saying, hey, great move you came up with when you grabbed him by the balls.
It's not because I want to, because I feel like she would.
So I tell y'all, Blake Lively grabbed this man's nuts when it wasn't in the script. And you guys come at me with a bunch of bullshit? Talking about he's the man. He probably liked it. If he didn't like it, he should have said something.
You know, there was a scene, I don't want to say who it was. I've talked about it before, but I was working on Saturday Night Live, doing background work, and one of the main actors, a female, there was a scene, it was called like Nuva Bling. It was where you put diamonds on your Nuva ring. It's a true story. And the actor kissed me and bit my lip and pulled it towards her. And again, this is like over a decade ago. You just kind of go with it, but that doesn't fly in today's world. You realize that that's not right. Now, I'm not claiming I was assaulted or anything like that. I'm using it as an example of like, you don't realize that it's a two-way street, sort of the boundaries that you need to set with each other. So this is very interesting because, I mean, there she is. I'll play the rest of, a little bit more of this reel here, but it's very interesting to see that, it's so flippant in the way they describe how it works when Blake's the one taking authorship over grabbing someone's junk.
It was his second fucking movie in Hollywood.
We're like, oh, it's his second movie. So I was like, he's a baby. Yeah, no, I was like, I was like, crafty, what's that?
His first movie, Crazy Rich Asians, wasn't even out yet when he was filming this. He literally was a nobody, if you want to call it that. He used to work at BBC as a travel host, and then he became an actor. He had absolutely zero power.
He said when you two were doing love scenes, he was getting uncomfortable for Ryan.
They were sat right behind us,
Yeah.
and it was actually the first time that I had met Ryan, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh no."
Was that before he started?
Was that before? Perfect position for like a headlock.
All right, so there it is. And again, it's not necessarily about whether or not this actor is okay with it. Was there protocol on set that they communicated before she did that crotch grab? The crotch grab would be irrelevant if it was in the scene, they agreed to it, they had they had the intimacy coordinator and all of that. It's relevant because Blake Lively is using a far less sexual scene to say she was harassed. That's where it becomes interesting. And by the way, a crotch grab of a man, that is something that was not considered to be super taboo until recently. Actor Terry Crews settled his lawsuit against the powerful Hollywood agent who allegedly groped him. At a 2016 party, a high-level Hollywood executive came up to Terry Crews and groped my privates, the actor wrote. He later identified his abuser as Adam Vennett. Now, what's interesting about this is it took a lot of, dare I say, balls for Terry to come forward in a world where people make a mockery over the male sex organ, especially with minorities. They do this. And this is a big deal. We know this, from years of being in stand-up comedy with jokes being made about male genitalia, and especially of different varieties, that applying to different minority groups, some larger, some smaller. It's taboo, or has been in the past, to even talk about, hey, maybe lay off someone's personal space, what they've got going on there. So it was really impressive for Terry Crews to come forward and say, I might be a big, strong actor with a successful career and all these things, but there's a man who's grabbing me by the chunk at a Hollywood party and thinks that that's okay. What else could that guy be doing? Well, that guy, Adam Bennett, the guy who had to settle and probably pay him millions, well, he was working at WME, the same agency that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are at. Adam Bennett, ex-WME agent, was at the center of the Terry Crews assault claims, was then sued for sexual assault and domestic violence by his spouse. That's right, brazen public assault on an imposing male former professional athlete, Terry Crews, pales in comparison to the abuse Adam has and continued to inflict on his wife behind closed doors. So that was a separate case that happened there. Now, clearly this guy was a maniacal, like he needed to be stopped. And I'll be honest, it could be that because Terry Crews spoke up, that Adam Bennett's now ex-wife was able to do the same. You never know what doing the right thing will lead to. And right now, the question that we sort of parse here with Blake Lively is, while they might say in a podcast interview, yeah, I took authorship, I did. My character wanted to grab him by the balls. We don't know what this actor has to say about it. It was only his second film, and clearly he's not gonna, or doesn't have the sort of power to speak up in an industry where his career could be made or broken at such a pivotal moment. It takes someone like Terry Crews, who's, got much more power to kind of stand up against this stuff. What we should learn moving forward is, regardless of gender, it's not right to touch anyone remotely in a sexual way on a film set without a full conversation in a very neutral way that's not going to lead to one side getting punished or whatever. And by the way, I know plenty of friends that are casting directors, and in the end, the casting directors work for the production team. So if you even have a question about what your character might do or any hesitation, the casting director is going to choose somebody who's going to fall in line. Because, imagine complaining on set. You're on set complaining, it's a big break you got, and all of a sudden you have the agents going, hey, can somebody get your client in line? We can't shoot this scene we want to shoot because so-and-so won't agree to X, Y, and Z. So again, it's hard for audiences to have empathy for these situations because you just see dollar signs. You see rich people all complaining about a little ball grab. But if it's not done with consent, then it is not done ethically. And if that's the case with Blake Lively, she's going to have a lot of questions to answer in her deposition, which is further proof that we don't think this is going to go to trial. The depositions, the discovery would have to be done by August 14th, which is why I think this thing settles before then. My guess is still that it settles on July 3rd, 2025, right as everyone's getting their barbecue ready. I'm here to tell you, I don't care if I'm on a boat. I don't care if I'm at the coolest barbecue of all time. I will be going live when this thing settles. All right, coming up next, we actually have a clip of Joe Rogan, very interestingly, speaking out against the current president for their reckless deportation of innocent people. That coming next. Okay, before I share the Joe Rogan clip, this is wild, right? The Trump administration concedes that a Maryland father from El Salvador was mistakenly deported and sent to a mega prison. So now the administration is saying that accidentally happened. It stems from a lawsuit over the removal of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a Salvadorian national who in 2019 was granted protected status by an immigration judge, prohibiting the federal government from sending him to El Salvador. So on March 15th, ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador. He was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error the Trump administration filing states. Here's the scary part. They're not going to bring him back. Abrego Garcia was not on the initial manifest of the Title 8 flight to be removed to El Salvador. He wasn't even on the manifest, and they put him on this flight. Rather, he was an alternate. As others were removed from the flight for various reasons, he moved up the list and was assigned to the flight. And by the way, this is exactly what I'm saying. This flight was all meant for propaganda. They didn't care who they put in the seats. They just wanted to make a short movie out of it as a deterrent to coming to our country. The manifest did not indicate that Abrego Garcia should not be removed. Through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the U.S. to El Salvador. This was an oversight, and the removal was carried out in good faith because based on an existence of a final order of removal and Abrego Garcia's purported membership in MS-13. Okay, purported membership? That doesn't exactly sound like due process to me. The administration argued it cannot bring back Abrego Garcia because he's in Salvadoran custody and knocked down concerns that he's likely to be tortured or killed. All right, so there it is. They're not going to they know it's a mistake, and they're not going to bring a guy back. J.D. Vance responded by saying that in 2019, an immigration judge determined that the deported man was in fact a member of the MS-13 gang. He had multiple traffic violations for which he failed to appear in court. A real winner, wrote J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance can go suck it. Oh, he's got some traffic violations. We should deport him to a different country where he doesn't receive due process. That's great. Now, people have responded to this and said, no, that's not true. The court filing does not say that. It says he was denied bond in 2019 over an informant's claim he was an MS-13. That's not a conviction. So there's a reason why we have a robust justice system so that things like this don't happen. Here's Joe Rogan arguing the same, that they're moving too fast and it's leading to mistakes. But guess what? They knew this would happen, right? It's better to apologize than ask permission, which is nice when you're playing hooky from school, not so much when you're playing with people's lives.
Through.
Yeah.
And there's probably still people coming through that are criminals.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, like, you got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, like, lassoed up and deported and sent to like El Salvador prisons, like that kind of shit. Because I read some story. It was a Glenn Greenwald.
It was. Yeah. The gay barber guy. Yeah. It's scary, man.
Is that true? Is that story accurate?
I don't think we know.
Can you explain the story for people that don't know?
Well, from what I read, I think it was in Time magazine, Jamie. If you can pull it up, and maybe we can get it accurate. But basically, with a bunch of these Trinidad guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally.
So this is the gay barber. Then we have the father of three from Maryland. Then we have the pro soccer player. So that's three that we know of. There's probably more where it's super gray area. So now they're saying, hey, we sent them there. We can't bring them back. I say not enough. Go in there and get these men back and do it the right way. If they're innocent, they stay, or you deport them back to their country they came from. If they're guilty, then you figure it out after. I still think this El Salvadorian prison is not the right way to go. We're paying our tax dollars to send these people to prison. If they're guilty, just deport them and then send them back to the country they came from. Like, why should we pay to put them in a prison when you can just deport them? So it's so messed up. This is exactly. I'm not here to take a victory lap. This is exactly what I said was happening when I was called out and called a terrorist sympathizer and all these things. I said, you're watching right now, due process go away, rolling back of green cards, student visas, people that are here seeking asylum, all of the legal avenues to get into this country, right? Everyone says, well, do it the right way. Well, what is the right way? What is the right way when you do it and then they still send you away, just so they can hit their quota and make their little Disney film propaganda piece? Again, the collateral damage here is shocking. It's dangerous. And frankly, I'm surprised the whole country is not sticking by these, standing up to this, right? I'm surprised. There was an article that I just saw that says Trump would rather own the libs than hold up the Constitution. And that's right. Whether he wants to run for a third term or not, the fact that he's trying to trigger the libs and talk about this just goes to show that he doesn't hold high the values of the fabric of what our country is built on. Due process, the judicial system, checks and balances, and the dang Constitution. That's what keeps us from tyranny. That's what keeps us from dictatorship. The idea that one person's not more powerful than anybody else. Now, we have insane things going on. Attorneys General, which is the top law agent of each state, representing 27 states, right? So over half the country, every state with a Republican attorney general, except for New Hampshire, live free or die, tells the Supreme Court to reverse judges' the temporary restraining order protecting Venezuelans in the U.S. from being deported to a nightmare Salvadorian prison without due process. Whoa, that's a lot of words. What does this mean? The top law enforcement of every Republican state run right now, except for New Hampshire, and by the way, God bless New Hampshire, right, is saying, we don't think you should stop the government from sending Venezuelans to this crazy prison. Note that ordinarily a temporary restraining order, TRO, can't even be appealed. The Trump administration and these Republican attorney general can't even bear to wait a few weeks before demanding to resume deporting and imprisoning people with no evidence or process. They're counting on the Supreme Court to be equally unprincipled. So then they said, I've been noticing that New Hampshire hasn't been signing on to any of the briefs filed by attorney generals. We're fully Republican controlled here, so it's been a nice surprise. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, are you Republican controlled or Democrat controlled? It's, are you following the laws of the government or not? And it seems as though these spineless attorneys generals would rather give all of the control to the executive branch than do what is the right thing, which is let the judicial system play out. Unbelievable stuff. Well, there are some people out there trying their best to hold up democracy. Here's Cory Booker holding a marathon Senate floor speech to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Have a listen to this. I think it's 11 or 13 hours.
To anyone?
Nobody.
So he just wants national attention.
Maybe he has a few fans.
Well, there are a couple other senators who occasionally ask him questions, and he yields the floor. But by yielding for a question, then he still controls the floor. This is not a filibuster, by the way.
So here's what did you miss last night when you made that dumb decision to sleep?
I rise with the intention of disrupting the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as I am physically able. I rise tonight because I believe sincerely that our country is in crisis. We are not solving the deficit in what they're proposing here. They're cutting and cutting and cutting things that make no sense to cut, and they're doing it for tax breaks which disproportionately go to the wealthiest. Placing tariffs on our biggest trade partners is beyond unfair. This drives the cost of goods up, and the consumer is the one who ends up paying the increase. Even with universities got too woke and had two excesses, the antidote to that isn't to try to shut down the thought of the left. It's to try to make a fair, more competitive marketplace for ideas from all around the political spectrum.
So there he is. And look, you might say, what's the purpose of Cory Booker speaking? He was speaking 11 hours, but I just looked it up. As of the recording of this podcast, which is 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker pressed his marathon speech against Trump's agenda past 18 hours and counting. Let me tell you something. I've done a 10-hour live stream and my brain hurt afterwards. It was so hard to do. A 10-hour live stream was very hard to do. He's 18 hours in and still going. Now, will this change anyone's opinions? Maybe not, but I think it shows some momentum that is existing out there where people are fighting what's going on. Tomorrow's April 2nd. This is the big day where Trump's going to start his global tariffs against people. Let's keep a look at the stock market, right? The stock market is now underperforming against the rest of the world. We had the greatest stock market of all time just several months ago. Now it's underperforming. Like, at what point will people realize this isn't good for the economy? But, the rich folks, when the stock market crashes, that's when they can invest. And then when everything rebounds, they just make more money. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. So they don't necessarily care about this. Now, the question I don't have an answer to yet, but we'll probably know in the morning, is what's going on with this Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. This will be a good litmus test to whether Elon Musk can buy an election or not. Let's go to the Today Show, what they had to say.
The race in Wisconsin is already the most expensive judicial race in American history. And in Florida, under normal circumstances, Republicans should cruise to wins in two very red districts. But these are by no means normal circumstances. In Wisconsin, Trump's top advisor, Elon Musk, has gone all in on a race to pick a new state Supreme Court judge who could affect key issues, including the state's election map.
In the Badger State, the billionaire and associated groups have spent $20 million in support of the conservative Brad Schmeil in his race against liberal Susan Crawford. Musk even offering two $1 million prizes to voters who are willing to sign a petition against, quote, activist judges. Meanwhile, in Florida, 2 congressional seats are in play, which will have a direct impact on the balance of power on Capitol Hill. Republicans currently hold a razor-thin 218 to 213 majority. 4 seats are vacant. The races today are to fill the seats left vacant by Trump appointees Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz. The latter race raising eyebrows, with Democrats hoping to overperform in a district Trump won by nearly 30 points.
Now, both sides are already setting expectations for tonight. Republicans arguing that a special election always leads to lower turnout and should not be seen as a referendum on the Trump administration, while Democrats are arguing that a closer than expected race should be read as a warning to Trump and his team to change course.
All right, well, we'll see what goes on. I mean, hey, I think it's interesting. You know, we've had very rare, but we've had people say, Dave, I feel like I've lost you as a friend over your stance on the politics. I don't even consider this politics. I consider this, where do we want our country to go moving forward? Where do we want it for our kids? And if we don't have democracy, what do we have? We have a country run by oligarchs, by billionaires, by people like Elon Musk that can pay to have elections swung in their direction so that the judicial branch works for them, not for the people. And we don't need that. We don't need that at all. I'm shocked when people say, "Oh, Dave, I've lost you as a friend." I go, "Why? Wouldn't you want this out of a friend? Someone who's willing to fight for people that have less than they do? I'll benefit from some of these Trump taxes. You know what I mean? But the people that won't are the people that can't afford any less, income. And the idea that, well, the inflation is going to go down, so they're going to have all this, money. No. That's not the direction this is going. This is going into a direction of real despair for a lot of people. And I don't like that. So I'm fighting for you, whether you think you lost a friend or not. I am fighting for you. Thank you guys so much for fighting for me. I've seen the reviews come in. They've poured in. You've righted the ship on Apple Podcasts and Spotify by leaving nice 5-star reviews. It really helps the channel. We've actually had our most successful week of all time on the podcast, thanks to going on Juicy Scoop and thanks to all of the traction we've received. So I appreciate all of the support. It means a lot for me. Maybe, it'll just help us kind of grow faster and get that message out to new people. So again, I'm starting to post new clips on Instagram and TikTok. You can go to the Rush Hour Podcast on TikTok. On TikTok, it's D Neals, DNEALZ. And then on Instagram, it's D Neals as well. But then my other Instagram that's just for the podcast is The Rush Hour with Dave Neal. You can go click on that and you'll see all of the clips where you can comment and we can interact over there. Thanks so much. We'll be back in the morning. And by all means on YouTube, stand by when the new court documents come out, which could be any minute. We'll go live and we'll read them out loud. It could be a spicy afternoon. We'll talk to you in a little bit. I'm Dave Neal and this is The Rush.